Welcome to All About Art. My name is Alexandra, and I'm an art historian, curator, and writer. Within this podcast, topics relating to art history, cultural policy, the art sector, as well as a large range of other art-related topics will be covered. Conducting critical discussions, having entertaining exchanges, or just enjoying some relaxing chats, All About Art is where you'll find it all. Join me in exploring and developing cultural discourse. Welcome to another episode of All About Art. It's Frieze Week here in London, and anyone here in the London art scene, but also those involved in the art market globally, knows that it's the busiest time of year for the arts here. The week is not only buzzing because of the art fair in Regent's Park, but the city is packed with events, dinners, breakfasts, tours, openings, and a bunch of other auxiliary programming. I'm here at the Mandrake Hotel today. And why am I at a hotel, you may ask? Well, 3 years ago, Johnny Tanna and Jacob Barnes launched the first iteration of Minor Attractions. It's an alternative art fair that has now found a home in the Mandrake. The fair's ethos is rooted in accessibility and community. So comparatively to other fairs, which have tickets costing anywhere from between 20 to like 120 pounds, this fair is free to visit. In this episode, I'm sitting down with some of the key people who make this fair what it is. So I'll speak to an exhibiting gallerist, an exhibiting artist, and with co-founder Jacob later on. But first, before we get to these little interviews, I wanted to give you a little bit more of an idea of what Minor Attractions actually is and how it positions itself in the art world. What I find makes this fair interesting is how exhibitors share hotel rooms to present their work, as well as other freeform exhibitions in the lounge area of the hotel. Not only that, but there are performances by artists and DJs with a nightclub-esque vibe when it starts to get late, which is really cool, seeing as everyone, may be really busy during the day, but we can all still have the chance at the end of the day at this fair to kind of let loose and have some fun, but also see some art and, have a bit of a party. Which, let's be real, the art world loves a bit of a party. It taps into the strong nightlife scene here in London, which is fun, creative, and incredibly relevant. They use the hotel in such fun and creative ways, with a Soho radio residency in a place called the Greenhouse, surrounded by glass and plants, and will include talks and music throughout the afternoons. Basically, what I'm saying is, this fair is so multifaceted. There's a space for business, there's a space for fun and relaxation, a space for alternative performances, video art, high-quality art, and a space for party, all wrapped into one thing. To quote some stats to illustrate the fair's positioning from a practical point of view, the fair features over 70 galleries from around the world. And to give you an idea of size, like in comparison to Frieze London and Frieze Masters, they show around 150 galleries respectively, give or take. So honestly, for such a young fair, that is damn impressive to have that quantity of galleries in your third edition. Also, of course, of extremely high quality too. And also comparatively, to participate in an art fair, fees can range from £20,000 to £150,000, depending on the size and location of your gallery's booth. And according to an art newspaper article from last year, the average participation price at Minor Attractions is £4,500, a fraction of the other numbers I just cited. So for anyone wondering about the basic business of an art fair model, the gallery participation fees are how an art fair makes their money and stays afloat and obviously pays for the things that they need to pay for. So this is often a calculated and very thought-through decision. I will actually ask Jacob, the co-founder of the fair, about this later on in our interview together. So if you're interested in that, please keep listening. I will let Jacob tell you about the idea behind Minor Attractions, as well as what he's learned over the last few years, and the lessons he carries with him from those previous editions. Of course, the fair is nothing without its galleries and artists, so I'm also looking forward to hearing their perspectives. I'm sitting down with Yaron and Seamus, co-founders of Layla Gallery, coming all the way from Sydney, Australia, and I'll ask them why they chose to show at this fair, as well as what their opinions are on the art fairs in Sydney versus London. I'm also sitting down with artist Isabella Benchen-Moltoro to hear more about her practice, as well as what it means for her as an artist to have her work exhibited at a fair like Minor Attractions. I hope you enjoy tuning in, so now, on to the interviews. All right, welcome, Jacob.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to dive right in with my first question. And I just want you to please introduce yourself briefly and tell the audience what you do.
So I am a co-founder and director of Minor Attractions, the art fair. And I am also the director of season 4, episode 6, a gallery here in London.
Perfect. And tell me about the idea that was behind founding Minor Attractions. Why is it important to have an alternative art fair? For those who also may not be familiar with the London art scene, I also want to ask you, why is it taking place in October?
All right, so let's start with the last part first, because I feel like that will provide a lot of context.
Yeah.
So here in London, we have a fair called Frieze, which is coming up on, I believe, 25 years old. And it is a massive part of the London art scene. So we have, the global art world descend on London in October, typically early October, for London Art Week, and that is defined by Frieze. That's been a huge part of the infrastructure, and we're all very grateful for it. It's been a massive part of our careers. But what felt really important was that as that organization has grown and has developed, it felt really important to have an organization that was really prioritizing the needs of smaller galleries, more experimental programs. And that's not to say that some of that stuff isn't available, but we wanted to be an organization that could really look towards the future of art in a way that something older like Frieze really isn't capable of. And so that was kind of the impetus of starting something like this. And now 3 years in, we find ourselves in, I think very fortunately, a very different position, where it's not where do we stand in relationship to Frieze, but how do we become more of ourselves? How do we grow into infrastructure that can be new and dynamic without really thinking about what's happening over there?
But I think one of the things that's quite special to hone in on is the participation fee. Because when you participate in something like Frieze, I think maybe for the focus section, I'm not even sure how much it costs, but it's probably 20 grand or above.
So the focus section is actually 10 grand.
It's 10 grand. Okay, see here with my misinformation. So the focus section is 10 grand. I know that for Frieze, for a bigger stand, it can be all the way up to 100 grand, depending on the size. So can you shed a little bit of light on that with Minor Attractions?
100%. So from the outset, one of the things that we really wanted to provide was an opportunity to be affordable for galleries. And of course, what affordable means over the last couple of years has changed, both with the art world going through what many would consider a difficult time, alongside kind of rising costs of production. But throughout, we've always been looking to find ways of including galleries that may not have a huge amount of resources. And so very early on, our foundational participation costs were quite low. Now, as we've grown, we've been able to provide infrastructure that's a little bit more developed, which costs a little bit more for bigger galleries, but we've still introduced things like the film program with a starting cost of only £100. To include a single work at Minor Attractions, that begins at £1,000. So with that in mind, I think we're able to bring in a bunch of galleries that otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to participate in this kind of infrastructure. And that's very, very exciting for us and really remains a core part of our ethos.
And now in its third year, I would love to actually look back at the previous iterations. Can you share some, maybe a memorable moment from a past edition that's really stayed with you?
I always come back to kind of one definitive moment in year one. Really what sat at the core of what we were doing was that we were two guys that wanted to start something new, that wanted to develop new and interesting infrastructure. And we really got up off our couches and did that. Yeah. And so there was a moment in year one where I watched people file in, and I couldn't help but to just break into tears because I couldn't believe that we had done it. And now 3 years in, with the infrastructure so much more developed.
So much more developed, because I remember going to that first one.
That felt like we were top of the world, and now so much has changed. I really love to think back at that moment, and of course, be very grateful for everything that's happened and for all of the galleries that over the last 2 years have entrusted us with their work and with their presence, but also to just be deeply humbled by that. And that has been, I think when we look towards what we want to develop, there's always the memory that we did really start somewhere, and things have changed, and that's quite nice.
Yes. And for this year, is there one thing that you would tell people to experience about the fair? Like, if you had to pick one thing, okay, you're going into the fair, what are you going to experience? What would that one thing be?
I would love for people to really engage with our public programming. I think that one of the things that we're most proud of this year, and I really cannot thank our Associate Director, Sophie Barrett-Poulot, enough for all of her incredible work on this. We have brought in people from around the world to deliver what we feel to be the most exciting public programming that's happening, not only this week here in London, but throughout the year in the city. And so, I think that is an opportunity for people to engage with an art fair in a way that they wouldn't otherwise typically do so, and really it's just I'm astounded by what people are able to do, about the dynamism and the real craft and talent that people are able to demonstrate.
Yeah. And my final question to you, Jacob, is what is one thing you wish you would have known and would maybe go back to tell your younger self when maybe entering into the arts or even starting minor attractions?
Don't start an art fair.
Don't start. You can't say that.
No. It's look. No, I think ultimately this experience over the last couple of years has meant so much to me, but it is certainly not for the faint of heart. And I think that one of the things that I would tell anyone who is beginning a career in the arts or wants to look towards kind of developing themselves in that way is to say that it is really all perseverance, and that there are certainly no mores than yeses, but it makes you love the yeses even more. It's, if I were to tell myself one thing, it would probably be to just stay patient.
Great. Thank you so much, Jacob.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome, Yaron. Can you please introduce yourself and tell me what you do?
Thanks for having me. So my name's Yaron Gatsby. I am in London from Sydney, Australia. I'm a director of Layla Gallery, and we are delighted to be presenting 4 artists' work at Minor Attractions in London this week.
And why did you choose to show at this fair as a gallery coming all the way from Sydney? And I kind of, in tandem with that, I want to know, what are you most excited about here at Minor Attractions? Because I think it's really interesting to understand sort of why you decided to participate in this fair.
So we were approached by Jacob Barnes.
Yeah, who was actually just on the podcast prior to you.
Oh, cool. A lovely guy. So yeah, he approached us about participating. We were interested from the get-go. But then of course, we're the only gallery here from the Southern Hemisphere because it is like prohibitively expensive to do these fairs. Like Jacob and the team were really like welcoming, but also flexible around they were just really motivated to help us do it and to figure out where extra support could be provided. And
right. So there was a lot of support from the team of
time.
Minor Attractions. Yeah.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had a few meetings and then decided that it was possible, and so myself and my co-director Seamus Heidenreich flew to London. I was in Greece for a week prior to decompress, but
kind of a good opportunity to take when you're already here.
Oh, totally. I mean, it's nearly a 24-hour flight from Australia. One of our key motivations as a gallery is trying to position our artists and early career practices in our part of the world in global context and global conversations.
Yeah.
And we can do that via digital methods, but we still want to be connecting with peers and critical dialogues in an international context.
I would love to hear more about how you view the art scenes in Australia versus London, and also why you felt it important to show your presence here. Because I guess, we did sort of just cover why Minor Attractions is good, but also what do you find special about London? But also I'd love to know, particularly I think because a lot of my listeners are based in London or in mainland Europe, or maybe, a little bit in the US as well. But I'd love to hear more about the art scene in Sydney and in Australia.
Like anywhere else in the world, there is no singular art scene in Australia. There are different worlds that coexist. It's an ecosystem. we work primarily with Australian and New Zealander artists of our generation, and we want to grow with these artists. We want to support these practices. We want to challenge the status quo, which is, pretty stuffy in Australia. But the thing is, like, the work that's being made and the practices that we hope to work with, we do work with and want to support, they are not out of place in an international context. They are part of global discourse, global dialogues. The quality, the conceptual rigor, it's of an international standard. But unfortunately, so often young and kind of early career Australian practices are excluded from these conversations because of the geographic separation.
Yeah.
We've still taken on risk to do this, but like just being able to facilitate that opportunity to like show their work.
Yeah. All right, Yaron, thank you so much. That concludes my questions.
An absolute pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much.
Welcome, Isabella.
Thank you so much, Alexandra.
Please introduce yourself briefly and tell me what you do.
I'm a Venezuelan artist. I was born in Caracas, then I grew up in Madrid, and then I did my master's here in London. I went to Goldsmiths. I started working as a sculptor mainly. I used to do more performance and video before that. I did my BA in Milan at a school called NABA. I had this idea of like becoming a sculptor that was in my mind. That didn't really quite go to plan, because what I do, I don't really consider myself a sculptor. I consider myself someone that makes things, but not necessarily a sculptor.
So you don't necessarily consider yourself a sculptor?
Not at all. I think the practice comes from photography, also comes from, the everyday, and that performance we kind of like all embody as being humans in our everyday lives. And then I kind of like want to think about myself as like someone that translates something. For me, resin is also something that kind of started as, together with this idea of me wanting to become like this sculptor that's like proper sculptor, I making molds and doing all the proper things, all the decisions being taken beforehand. And that is something that I realized that due to my practice didn't make any sense. So I kind of like created my own technique, and then also realized that conceptually resin is something that really resonates and kind of like goes together very well with the idea of photography, because it freezes in time and moment. So that's when I started like somehow leaning into, okay, this is something that I want to develop more and push more.
I would just love to delve a little bit more into your practice and the materials that you work with. You did mention resin, you work with silicone, with used clothes. So how could we describe your work to a listener tuning in?
I think my work is somehow an attempt to freeze in time or freeze time. Mm-hmm. Actually, I kind of came with the realization of how romantic and cheesy it might sound. Like literally like 1 week ago, I had like this interview that I had to do, and I had the same question, and I was like, wow, that's so cheesy. And then through that question, there's so many other questions come to place, such as this balance between something that is chaotic and something that is organized, or also things that have to do with the most practical aspect in the work, which is a research in textile, which is something that I've been doing for the last 5 years. So, I think the work is very much in between a very practical and material-based practice together with a very conceptual practice that really incorporates this idea of resin as photography.
Yeah. And you're showing here at Minor Attractions with Nevin Gallery,
yes,
which is incredibly exciting. Helen has actually been on the podcast in the past.
Yeah.
I love Helen. I love Nevin Gallery's program.
The best.
And I want to ask you, from a practical point of view, what does it mean to you as an artist to be exhibiting at a fair like Minor Attractions?
I think it's super interesting, especially because super interesting, exciting, and also I feel really proud because I feel like what Helen is doing and so many other small galleries are doing is really, really incredibly brave, what they're doing. And it also gives me so much strength, because if someone really trusts my practice, it means that I can really bond with someone and kind of like create that team in order to make things happen. Because otherwise, we're just so lonely. Artists are just so lonely, and we really need that strong mentality to having that structure, right? To be able to continue making, because sometimes it becomes very, very sad and lonely.
Like isolated.
It is very.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, Isabella, that concludes my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alexandra.
And that wraps up our conversations from Minor Attractions 2025. It's been such a pleasure speaking with the people who make this fair so special. From the galleries traveling across the world to participate, to the artists whose work bring these hotel rooms to life, and of course, Jacob, whose vision continues to shape what this fair represents. Minor Attractions runs until Saturday, October 18th here at the Mandrake Hotel. So if you're in London and you haven't had the chance to visit yet, you still have time to experience this unique blend of art, performance, and nightlife. And remember, it's completely free to attend. And for those of you listening from elsewhere or who can't make it this year because this podcast has been a tight turnaround this week, I highly recommend keeping Minor Attractions on your radar for next October. This fair truly embodies the spirit of accessibility and community that the art world, frankly, needs more of. As always, thank you so much for listening. And that is it for today on All About Art. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a rating or a review as it helps more people discover the show. Also, feel free to share with your friends, or if you share on social media, tag me and get in touch. Thank you so much for listening.